a story that won't fade away. If you've been scrolling through social media lately, you've probably seen the phrase Epstein Files trending. Millions of people are talking about it. News channels are covering it. Online creators are making videos about it. But here's the truth. Most people don't actually know what these files contain, where they came from, or why they matter. Today, we're going to break down everything you need to know. This isn't about rumors or conspiracy theories. This is a fact-based investigation into one of the most controversial legal cases of our time. We'll explore who Jeffrey Epstein was, what the documents actually reveal, and why this story continues to spark global conversation years after his death. By the end of this video, you'll understand the real story behind the headlines and why separating fact from fiction has never been more important. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? To understand the Epstein Files, we first need to understand the man himself. Jeffrey Epstein was born in 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. His early life was relatively ordinary. He grew up in a middle-class family and showed an early interest in mathematics and science. After graduating from college, Epstein took an unexpected path. He became a teacher at the prestigious Dalton School in Manhattan, despite not having completed his own degree. It was during this time that Epstein made connections with wealthy families. Soon after, he left teaching and entered the world of finance. He joined Bear Stearns, a major investment bank, where he worked in options trading. However, his time there was short-lived. He left the firm under circumstances that were never fully explained. What happened next is where the mystery deepens. Epstein launched his own financial management firm, claiming to work exclusively with billionaires. He positioned himself as a financial genius who could navigate complex tax laws and offshore accounts. He reportedly required clients to have at least $1 billion in net worth before he would even consider working with them. But here's the strange part. Nobody could quite figure out how Epstein made his money. Unlike other wealthy financiers whose business dealings are well documented, Epstein's financial operations remained largely opaque. There were no public records of major investments, no clear paper trail, and very few confirmed clients. Despite this mystery, Epstein lived an extraordinarily lavish lifestyle. He owned a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands known as Little St. James. He had a massive mansion on Manhattan's Upper East Side, one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the world. He owned properties in New Mexico, Florida, and Paris. He traveled on private jets and helicopters. He hosted parties attended by scientists, politicians, celebrities, and academics. Epstein cultivated an image of intellectual sophistication. He donated to scientific research. He sat on the boards of prestigious institutions. He befriended Nobel Prize winners and claimed to be passionate about advancing human knowledge. To the outside world, Jeffrey Epstein appeared to be a brilliant, eccentric billionaire with a passion for science and philanthropy. But beneath this carefully constructed image, something far darker was happening. The allegations surfaced. In the early 2000s, disturbing allegations began to emerge. Parents in Palm Beach, Florida, reported that their teenage daughters had been recruited to give massages to a wealthy man living in a waterfront mansion. These weren't ordinary massage appointments. According to police reports and testimonies, young girls, some as young as 14, were being paid to perform sexual acts. The Palm Beach Police Department launched an investigation. What they uncovered was deeply troubling. Victims described a systematic pattern of abuse. They said Epstein had recruiters who would approach girls at schools, shopping malls, and other locations. These recruiters would offer money, sometimes just $200 or $300, for what they claimed would be simple massage work. Once the girls arrived at Epstein's mansion, the situation would change. According to testimonies, Epstein would pressure them into sexual acts. He would offer more money for bringing other girls. Some victims reported that they were trafficked to other locations and introduced to other wealthy men. The investigation revealed an alleged network of enablers. Staff members at Epstein's properties were accused of facilitating these encounters. Pilots flew underage girls on private jets. Assistants allegedly helped schedule appointments and manage payments. In 2006, Palm Beach police recommended felony charges against Epstein. Federal investigators became involved. The FBI opened its own investigation. By all accounts, prosecutors were building a strong case that could have resulted in serious prison time. But then something unusual happened. In 2008, instead of facing federal charges, Epstein entered a plea agreement that would later be called one of the most controversial legal deals in American history. Under the terms of this agreement, Epstein pled guilty to 2 state prostitution charges. He was sentenced to 18 months in county jail, but he actually served only 13 months. Even more unusually, he was granted work release for 6 days a week, allowing him to leave jail and go to his office for up to 12 hours a day. This meant that Epstein spent most of his jail time outside of jail. The deal also included immunity for any potential co-conspirators. This meant that anyone else who might have been involved in Epstein's alleged crimes could not be federally prosecuted based on the evidence gathered in that investigation. Perhaps most controversially, prosecutors did not inform Epstein's victims about the plea agreement before it was finalized. This violated federal law, which requires crime victims to be consulted about plea deals. Many victims only learned about the agreement after it had already been approved. Public outrage over this deal would simmer for years. Questions arose. Why did Epstein receive such lenient treatment? Who authorized this agreement? Did his wealth and connections play a role in the outcome? Alex Acosta, who served as the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida and approved the deal, later became U.S. Secretary of Labor. When the Epstein case resurfaced in 2019, Acosta resigned from his cabinet position amid intense criticism. After serving his reduced sentence, Epstein returned to his life of luxury. He continued to travel, attend social events, and maintain his connections with powerful people. To many observers, it seemed that money and influence had allowed him to escape serious consequences. The 2019 arrest. For a decade, Epstein lived as a registered sex offender but faced no additional criminal charges. Then, in July 2019, everything changed. Federal prosecutors in New York announced new charges against Epstein: sex trafficking of minors and conspiracy to commit sex trafficking. Unlike the 2008 case, these were serious federal charges that could result in decades in prison. The indictment alleged that between 2002 and 2005, Epstein had sexually exploited and abused dozens of minor girls at his homes in Manhattan and Palm Beach. Prosecutors stated that Epstein had created a network designed to recruit victims, many of whom came from disadvantaged backgrounds. When federal agents arrested Epstein, they found evidence that prosecutors called extraordinarily disturbing. A search of his Manhattan mansion allegedly revealed hundreds of photographs of nude and partially nude young women and girls. Some of these images were found in a locked safe along with compact discs labeled with names. Epstein was denied bail. A judge ruled that he posed a danger to the community and was a serious flight risk, given his wealth and access to private jets. For victims who had waited more than a decade for justice, this arrest represented a second chance. Many prepared to testify. Prosecutors built their case. It appeared that Epstein would finally face a full trial. Then, on August 10, 2019, everything changed again. The death in jail. Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. He was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital. The official cause of death was ruled suicide by hanging. The circumstances surrounding his death immediately sparked intense scrutiny and controversy. Epstein had been placed on suicide watch after an earlier incident, but had been removed from that status days before his death. On the night he died, the guards assigned to check on him every 30 minutes allegedly fell asleep and falsified logs to cover up their failure. Security cameras that should have recorded his cell area reportedly malfunctioned. These failures led to widespread skepticism. While the official ruling was suicide, many people questioned whether the full truth had been revealed. Conspiracy theories spread rapidly online.
Some suggested that Epstein had been murdered to prevent him from revealing information about powerful individuals. Regardless of the exact circumstances, one thing was clear. Jeffrey Epstein would never stand trial. He would never be forced to answer questions under oath, and he would never face the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison. For his victims, this was devastating. Many had waited years for their day in court. They wanted to confront Epstein publicly. They wanted the full extent of his crimes to be exposed in a courtroom. His death denied them that opportunity. But Epstein's death did not end the legal saga. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning. What are the Epstein Files? Now we come to the heart of our investigation, the Epstein Files themselves. Here's what you need to understand. Epstein Files is not an official term. There is no single document called the Epstein Files that was hidden and then dramatically revealed. Instead, this phrase has become a catch-all term for a large collection of legal documents related to Jeffrey Epstein and the various lawsuits connected to his case. These documents include court filings, thousands of pages of legal arguments, motions, and judicial rulings from multiple cases, depositions, sworn testimony given by witnesses, victims, and individuals connected to Epstein. These depositions were taken during civil lawsuits. Flight logs, records from Epstein's private jets showing passengers, dates, and destinations. These logs span many years and include hundreds of names. Emails and correspondence, communications between Epstein and various individuals, including business associates, staff members, and acquaintances. Legal exhibits, evidence presented in court cases, including photographs, financial records, and other materials. Most of these documents came from a civil lawsuit filed by Virginia Giuffre, one of Epstein's accusers, against Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate. Maxwell was accused of recruiting and grooming underage girls for Epstein. That case eventually settled, but it generated thousands of pages of sealed documents. Over time, media organizations and advocacy groups fought legal battles to have these documents unsealed. They argued that the public had a right to know what these records contained, especially given the serious nature of the allegations and the involvement of prominent individuals. Judges agreed, at least partially. In batches over several years, documents were unsealed and made public. The most recent major release occurred in late 2023 and early 2024, when hundreds of additional pages were released. So, what did the documents actually contain? Let's separate fact from fiction. What the documents do contain: names of many well-known individuals. These include politicians, celebrities, business people, scientists, and academics. Some of these people flew on Epstein's jets, some attended events at his properties, some were mentioned in emails or testimony. Details about Epstein's properties and how they operated. Victim testimonies describe the layout of his homes, the staff members present, and the daily routines. Accounts from victims describing their experiences. These testimonies are often detailed and disturbing, providing insight into how Epstein allegedly operated. Information about Ghislaine Maxwell's role. Multiple testimonies describe her as actively involved in recruiting and grooming underage women for Epstein. Evidence of lavish spending and a luxurious lifestyle. Records show the scale of Epstein's wealth and the resources he used to maintain his operations. What the documents do not necessarily prove. The documents do not prove that everyone named engaged in illegal activity. This is crucial to understand. Someone's name appearing in flight logs means they traveled on Epstein's jet, nothing more, nothing less. It doesn't automatically mean they participated in or witnessed any crimes. The documents do not contain a client list of people who paid for illegal services. This is perhaps the biggest misconception circulating online. There is no confirmed list released by courts showing people who are clients of a sex trafficking operation. The documents do not prove guilt for individuals who haven't been charged or convicted. In the U.S. justice system, people are innocent until proven guilty in court. Being mentioned in legal documents is not the same as being convicted of a crime. Understanding the names. Let's talk about why names appear in the documents and what that actually means. Imagine you're investigating a major company involved in fraud. In the course of that investigation, you might find emails mentioning hundreds of people. Some of those people might be criminals who participated in the fraud, but others might be innocent employees, customers, or even people who reported the fraud. Finding someone's name in an email doesn't tell you which category they fall in without further context. The same principle applies here. Names appear in the Epstein documents for many different reasons. Some people flew on Epstein's jets for legitimate reasons. Epstein cultivated relationships with academics and scientists. He donated to research institutions. Some respected professionals accepted his offers of transportation to conferences or events without any knowledge of his criminal activities. Some people attended social events where Epstein was present. In elite social circles, it's common for people to encounter each other at charity galas, fundraisers, or dinner parties. Attending the same event as someone doesn't imply a close relationship or knowledge of their private activities. Some people were mentioned in casual conversation. Depositions and emails sometimes reference people simply because they came up in conversation, not because they were directly involved in any activities. Some people had professional relationships with Epstein. Lawyers, accountants, pilots, staff members, and business associates interacted with Epstein as part of their work. This doesn't automatically make them complicit in his crimes. Of course, some individuals named in the documents face serious allegations. Some have been charged criminally. But the key point is this: context matters enormously. Responsible reporting requires looking at why and how someone's name appears, not just that it appears.
The misinformation problem. The Epstein case has become a breeding ground for misinformation, and it's important to understand why. Social media amplification. Platforms like Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube reward engagement. Posts that promise shocking revelations or secret lists get clicks, shares, and views, even if they're inaccurate. Content creators sometimes prioritize virality over accuracy. Confirmation bias. People tend to believe information that confirms their existing suspicions about powerful institutions or individuals. If someone already distrusts politicians or celebrities, they're more likely to accept unverified claims about them without demanding evidence. Misunderstood legal documents. Court filings are complex and full of legal jargon. When people without legal training read these documents, they sometimes misinterpret what they're seeing. A name mentioned in testimony might be incorrectly understood as an accusation. Deliberate manipulation. Some bad actors intentionally spread false information about the Epstein case to pursue personal or political agendas. They might create fake lists, alter documents, or take statements out of context. The result is a confusing landscape where truth and fiction become difficult to distinguish. The real victim stories. Amid all the online speculation and debate, it's crucial to remember who this case is really about: the victims. Many survivors of Epstein's abuse have spoken publicly about their experiences. Their testimonies are heartbreaking and reveal the long-term impact of trauma. Some victims were as young as 14 when they encountered Epstein. Many came from difficult family situations or economic hardship, which made them vulnerable to exploitation. Recruiters often targeted girls at places like shopping malls or outside schools, offering money for what seemed like legitimate work. Once involved, victims described feeling trapped. Some reported being manipulated through a combination of money, fear, and psychological pressure. Others said they were encouraged to recruit their friends, creating a chain that spread the abuse further. The psychological impact has been profound. Survivors have described struggling with trust, relationships, self-worth, and mental health. Many have needed extensive therapy and support to heal from their experiences. What makes their pain even worse is that justice has been incomplete. Jeffrey Epstein died before trial, while Ghislaine Maxwell was eventually convicted and sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Many victims feel that the full network of enablers and participants has never been fully exposed or held accountable. These survivors deserve our respect, not sensationalism. Their stories are not entertainment.
They are testament to real suffering and the importance of protecting vulnerable people. Ghislaine Maxwell's conviction. While Epstein escaped trial, one of his closest associates did not. Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite and daughter of media mogul Robert Maxwell, was arrested in July 2020. Prosecutors charged her with multiple counts related to recruiting and trafficking underage girls for Epstein. Ghislaine's trial took place in late 2021. The proceedings revealed disturbing details about her alleged role in Epstein's operations. Multiple victims testified that Maxwell groomed them, sometimes befriending them first before facilitating their abuse. They described her as charming and sophisticated, which made her approach seem less threatening. The prosecution presented evidence that Maxwell was not merely a passive bystander, but an active participant who used her social skills and connections to make Epstein's operation possible. In December 2021, Maxwell was found guilty on 5 of 6 counts, including sex trafficking of minors. In June 2022, she was sentenced to 20 years in federal prison. Maxwell has maintained her innocence and filed appeals, but her conviction stands as the most significant legal accountability in the Epstein case beyond Epstein's own prosecution. Why this story keeps resurfacing? If you're wondering why the Epstein case keeps coming back into public conversation, there are several reasons. Ongoing legal proceedings. Civil cases continue as victims seek compensation and justice. Each new filing or court decision can generate fresh media coverage. Document releases. As courts unseal more records, new information becomes available, sparking renewed interest and analysis. Media cycles. News organizations periodically revisit major stories, especially when new angles emerge or anniversaries approach. Social media dynamics. Online platforms create echo chambers where topics can trend repeatedly as new users discover them or old posts recirculate. Unresolved questions. Many aspects of the case remain mysterious. How did Epstein really make his money? Who knew about his crimes and chose not to act? Were there other perpetrators who escaped accountability? These unanswered questions create fertile ground for both legitimate investigation and baseless speculation. The bigger questions. Beyond the specific details of the Epstein case, this story raises fundamental questions about society and justice. Does wealth buy different treatment in the legal system? Epstein's 2008 plea deal certainly suggests that having expensive lawyers and influential connections can affect outcomes. This raises serious concerns about equality before the law. How do powerful people sometimes evade accountability? The Epstein case demonstrates how wealth, social connections, and complex legal maneuvering can delay or prevent justice. What responsibility do institutions have? Multiple organizations had connections to Epstein, universities that accepted his donations, charities where he served on boards, financial institutions that managed his money. What due diligence should they have performed? How can vulnerable people be better protected? The victims in this case were often young people from difficult circumstances. What systems could society put in place to protect those most at risk of exploitation? What is the appropriate balance between privacy and transparency? The unsealing of court documents serves public interest, but it also affects the privacy of many individuals, including innocent people whose names appear in routine contexts. These questions extend beyond one criminal case. They touch on fundamental issues of power, privilege, justice, and social responsibility. Conclusion. Seeking truth in a world of noise. The Epstein Files are neither a simple scandal nor a massive conspiracy. They are complex legal documents that reveal a deeply troubling case of abuse, exploitation, and institutional failure. Understanding this story requires several things. Critical thinking. Don't accept sensational claims without evidence. Ask for sources. Verify information before sharing it. Respect for nuance. Context matters. Names and documents require explanation. Not everything is as it initially appears. compassion for victims. Real people suffered real trauma. Their stories deserve to be heard with respect and empathy, not treated as gossip or entertainment. Commitment to facts. In an age of misinformation, truth matters more than ever. Responsible reporting and careful analysis are essential. Patience with complexity. Not every question has a simple answer. Some aspects of this case may never be fully understood. The Jeffrey Epstein case is a story about power, privilege, abuse, and the long quest for justice. It's a reminder that wealth and connections should not place anyone above the law. It's a testament to the courage of survivors who spoke out despite fear and stigma. And it's a challenge to all of us to think carefully about the information we consume and share. As more documents potentially emerge in the future, we must remain committed to understanding rather than sensationalizing, to facts rather than fiction, and to justice rather than spectacle. Thank you for watching. Remember to verify information, think critically, and treat this serious topic with the respect it deserves.